Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on this YouTube channel, and today, in response to a YouTube user Drew video, I'm creating a drum set on a virtual analog or hybrid synthesizer. And yeah, he asked for bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat and claps, so let's go through that one by one. Okay, this is the bass drum. We begin by clicking initialize to create an empty patch, and then I'll start playing a sequence here. And here, this is the saw wave, so short attack, short decay, no sustain and release. A deep note being played. And now let's change the first oscillator to a sine wave. So we're almost instantly there, bass drum. But let's spruce it a little bit up by adding a second oscillator. Leave that at saw wave, and then we'll create a modulation envelope and apply it to this oscillator number 2. You can hear this laser-like sound going on there, and let's change that a little by adding a little bit of decay and no sustain and release and fast attack. So you can hear this thudding sound now, and we can adjust that by changing the octave in which this oscillator is playing. Yeah, and now let's add, last step, let's add a low pass filter. And yeah, you can adjust this by the octave in which it's playing and the filter cutoff frequency here. Let's add some noise. Listen how that sounds. Yeah, and maybe some distortion. Yeah, I think that's it. That's a bass drum. You can play around with the filter resonance if you want to, but I think job done. Okay. And we continue with the snare drum. Nearly the same principles as for the bass drum apply here, but obviously you have to play a higher note. And we'll add some noise and a little bit of filtering on top of that. We begin by initializing our sound and then playing our sequence. And now we want to dial all the ADSR values down a little bit and just a little bit of decay in here. And of course we could now just add some noise and remove the oscillator and call this a snare drum. But let's try something more elaborate here. So we begin by setting up the LFO2 to modify the frequency of the first oscillator in the fastest possible way. And I've set it up so it doesn't fade away. And now I will apply it to the oscillator 1 by turning up this value. Now you have to be very careful and listen to the result, because it depends on the note you're playing on your sequencer. Also try adjusting the speed of the LFO until you get a result like this, for example. Okay, that will do. Now let's adjust the LFO2 depth once more. Okay, now let's stick with that, and now let's change the filter from a low pass filter to a band pass filter. And add some noise. Now what you also can do is to slightly detune the oscillator even more by using a modulation envelope and applying it to the frequency of these oscillators. So changing the attack will make the frequency of the oscillator be more modified in the beginning of the tone. So playing around with these values will also slightly adjust the sound of your snare drum. Okay, let's play around with the filter a little, and you can also use the filter cutoff resonance. But you must be very careful with your adjustments, because even the slightest of nuances can entirely change your sound here. Okay, let's stick with this. So we have a high pass filter now at 24 decibel and frequency somewhere in the middle. And yeah, I think this sounds a little bit similar to the snare drum. You can always make adjustments like bringing in another oscillator and making the same adjustments here to make the sound a little bit stronger. And you can change, on this synthesizer you can also change the shape of the waveform, and that will change the character of your drum sound too. So what we can also do is bring a little bit of reverb. What's interesting about the sound is that it really depends on the note you're playing. Yeah, you have to play around with these values a little bit, and remember, be very careful when adjusting this. Okay, let's start by beginning our sequence again. Then dial the oscillator 1 all the way down, dial the noise all the way up, and then adjust the decay value, and then change your filter to a band pass filter, a band pass filter. And with this you can adjust the brightness of your hi-hat sound. And with the decibel setup here, you can adjust the bandwidth of your bandpass filter. So let's stick with 24 dB. And you can adjust the decay value to simulate a closed hi-hat or an open hi-hat. So there's a closed hi-hat here, and this is an open hi-hat. You can also add an LFO to your filter, so there's a slight variation in the sound, makes it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, and that's hi-hat. Let's begin by initializing the sound once again, starting a sequence. We always want the short attack and decay, and yeah, let's begin by setting up the same way as our snare drum. Bandpass filter. Now add some noise. Now let's adjust this just a little bit. Add some resonance to the filter. Okay, let's stick with that. Now the trick here is that you don't play a single note, but it's a hand clap, so you want to have multiple notes. Let's listen. We can improve this by adding a little bit of delay to this one and a little bit of reverb. Let's listen again. Yeah, I think that's quite okay. And there you have it, the bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat and a clap on a virtual analog synthesizer like the Novation PEAK, or maybe on your Novation Circuit. Yeah, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would be very glad if you subscribe to my channel or leave a thumbs up, but there's no pressure. Yeah, and as always, thanks for watching and see you next week. Bye bye.